Hi everyone, I'm Kay of Kay's Creative Home. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be taking these supplies to make an everyday wreath. So let's get started. So to make our wreath, we're going to start with this wreath frame that I made using two candy cane wreath forms from Dollar Tree. And if you'd like to learn how to make that, I have another video in the description box below that you can click on, or you can click on the upper right hand corner of your screen. So the first thing we're going to do is start adding our deco mesh, and I got ahead of myself because I didn't show you how I made my little roll here. So I'm using 10-inch deco mesh. I have a 30-yard roll, and the first thing I did was cut 18-inch pieces. Normally it's 20, but I chose 18 today because my pipe cleaners are only 3 inches apart, and normally it's like 4 inches or a little bit more. So first thing you do is do a little roll on one end of your mesh, and let me put this rock here so you can see what I'm doing. And I tend to do smaller rolls. Again, this is only 18 inches, so I can't do huge rolls. So I do it, roll it twice, and then I gather it down the center. Put a little clamp on there because I'm getting them all ready so that once I get started, I don't have to stop and make one each time. One of the advantages of doing that is that you kind of get your rhythm going, and it helps you move a little faster. So again, 2 little rolls in, making sure it's even so that your ends aren't sticking out. That way your the cut end won't be exposed and brushed against, so it won't be fraying everywhere. And then I gathered in the center again, and then I actually fold the mesh to the sides so that when I place it on the wreath form, all of the mesh is pointed out toward the outside. So now I'm going to just start adding some more of these little curls onto my wreath form, and I'm going to put one in each zip tie, in each pipe cleaner. Again, taking it, kind of folding it together so that the ends are all pointed out and the fold is toward the center. So I have, I believe, 12 pipe cleaners on here. So you need 12 of these rolls to, or gathered rolls to add to the wreath form. So the next thing I want to do is to make my tails to go onto the wreath form, and I use this ruler. It's just a plastic ruler. I find it works fine as long as you use a ruler that doesn't have any uneven edges at the end, so it won't snag your ribbon. So I wrapped it around. This time I need 6 of them. I already had one made, so I only wrapped it around 5 times, and then I'm going to cut it so that I have equal lengths of 12 inches. And then the next thing I need to do is just clip the ends to make dovetails. And then we're going to be ready to move on to the next step. So the rest of the ribbon I'll be using has already been prepared, and I'm putting a green with a beige ribbon each time. And to get them ready to put on the wreath, I just place the green one on top of my beige and fold it in half so that the top one, which is the green and white stripes, is in the center. And this helps create the shape you want for your tails. And it also helps you find your center point. So now that I have my center point, I just do a gather. And again, I'm folding the ribbon so that it all points out and the fold is toward the center of my wreath. And I'm just going to add it to the wreath frame. Now the strip I just showed you had a black mark in it, like something got into the ribbon when they were making it. So that piece had to be tossed aside, and I'm going to quickly make one more tail for my wreath. Sometimes it happens with your ribbon. Sometimes you find cut pieces in the middle of the roll. But because I'm just using this ribbon for tails right now, that wasn't a problem. I didn't miss out on much. Alright, so as you put them in, you want to kind of shape them, give them a little bit of a curve so that they won't be flat against your wreath. So what I'm doing now is skipping a pipe cleaner in between my green and white stripe ones. And the reason I did that is because I want to add a tail in between that has these leaves on it. For my personal preference, I like the leaf ribbon more than I like the green and white stripe. I think it has more interest and it catches your eye more. So I put that in last so that it will sit on top of the green and white stripe ribbon tails. Just my own personal preference. But as I go around this wreath form, I'm just going to be alternating the stripe ribbon with the beige and then the green leaf ribbon against another beige ribbon. And again, each time I'm going to put the green and white one in first and then come back and put the leaf one in between. So while I'm putting the rest of these tails in, let me just mention that in my upcoming videos, I'm going to be doing a quick video again on how to make this working wreath form using the 2 candy cane wreath forms. And then I'm also going to be doing a quick video on how I make my ribbon tails. So if you're interested in those, don't forget to hit that button and join the family so you'll be notified when my new videos are released. All right, let's move on to the next step. So the next thing I want to do is add these cable tie mounts to the back of the picture I'm going to be using in the center of my wreath. Took me the longest time to find the name of these things, but that's what they're called, cable tie mounts. And they're self-adhesive, but I'm adding a little dab of glue to the back to secure them quickly, because I forgot to do this at the beginning. It'd be better if you do this at the beginning of making your wreath so it has time to set. I'm actually placing them, I guess, about a ½ inch from the end. It should be at least a ½ inch in, just so that if you are working with a wreath where your attachment, the pipe cleaner I put in, sometimes it might show. In this case it won't, so you might want to put them at least a ½ inch in, and then I'm putting them in the center of each side. So the next thing I do, of course, is attach my pipe cleaners so that I can use them to attach it to the wreath form. Now, because my wreath is not like super thick and this is going in the center, I only need about 6 inches to reach the wreath form. So I put the pipe cleaner on and folded it in half. These are 12-inch pipe cleaners. So I have 6 inches on each side, and that's enough length for me to reach down into the wreath and attach it to the wireframe. So I got those attached, and now I'm just going to put it on in there. So I find a place on the sides and at the top and bottom where it can be wrapped around a wire. And it takes a little minute to just finagle this and get it all in there. But the goal is to place the picture on your wreath so that it sits on top and doesn't get mashed into your deco mesh. So you saw me just put a little clamp on there, and that, for me, that's just to hold the sign in place while I get all of the pipe cleaners through to the back side of the wreath form, and make sure I have everything lined up like I want it before I start tightening them. Again, you want it to sit lightly kind of on top of your mesh. I don't have mesh behind the sign because I think it's enough around the sides and the top and bottom to hold it in place so that it doesn't sink in. So in this case, it is kind of like in the valley of the wreath, but it's not mashed in. So right now you can see as I'm getting it situated, it's kind of leaning, but I'll adjust that. And I'll make sure that all of my ribbon tails are not tucked in under the picture. I'll gently tug on those and make sure they're still out at the fullest length. So then I'll work my way around and just twist those pipe cleaners around a crossbar of the wreath form so that I'm holding it, getting it attached in place. And in a minute I'll flip it over. I didn't want to flip it over because you start mashing things when you do that. But I'm going to flip it over in a minute. and show you, exactly how it looks as you're attaching them. So the next thing I'd like to do is get some other things ready for my wreath. I decided to add some greenery to bring this wreath to life a little bit more, since my colors are more neutral. I wanted to make sure I had enough green to give it some more pop. So I have this greenery, and it came with quite a few stems on it, which is lovely. And I'm going to use 8 pieces. So I think I actually used 2 stems. I did not have that in the splice because, of course, that's optional. So once I get my 8 pieces cut, I'm going to take the 2 longest pieces and use them on the corners near my sign, and then the other 4 pieces I'm going to use on the sides of the sign. So I'm just going to clip these and get them ready. I'm not going to attach them yet, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So the next step I want to do is prepare my bow, and I'm going to be making 2 bows for this wreath. The reason is, again, one, it's a neutral wreath. The colors are neutral, so I need to add more interest. And 2, my sign doesn't come quite to the top and the bottom enough to cover the where my deco mesh and ribbon tails are attached. So if I place bows on both ends, it will help to fill in that area, and you won't be able to see any of my pipe cleaners where I've attached things. So I'm going to be using the same 4 ribbons that I use for my tails, and I'm doing the first 2 are going to be 6 inches. The tails are 6 inches, and each loop is 6 inches. And then on these next 2, the one I'm doing now and the leaf ribbon, I'm going to be doing them at about 5 inches. I'm going to make sure that each tier I'm building gets a little bit shorter so that you can see the other ribbons underneath, and it just makes a nicer bow, makes everything look real poofy and full. So if you're enjoying the videos, please remember to give it a thumbs up and share it with others. It is a tremendous help for your YouTuber friends if you share their videos. It does amazing things for our channel. Also, again, if you're not a family member and you want to be notified when new videos are released, don't forget to hit the button and ring the bell, and you'll get those notifications. So at this point, I'm adding a zip tie underneath all the layers of my bow, lifting it off the bow maker, and then I draw it tightly, not all the way, excuse me, and got it to the center of my bow, added the pipe cleaner so I have something to attach it to my wreath, and then I clipped tightened the zip tie and clipped it at the ends. So now I'm just shaping it. I'm not going to clip my tails until I actually get it attached to the wreath form. I'm learning that if you do it once it's on the wreath form, you get a better idea of how long you want those tails to be. So I took a piece of the ribbon and I'm wrapping it around the center of my bow. I'm starting to like the way that looks a little better. You know, as you grow and evolve, you start doing different things, and I just want a little more, I guess, precision, or I don't know what the correct word is when I'm making my bows. So I'm going to try to either attach ribbon at the center or make sure I make a center loop. Now, before I move on to attaching more things to the front of my wreath, the next thing I want to do is make sure I get everything finished on the back. And so these are the pipe cleaners that I use to attach my sign. I'm finally now twisting them really tight and wrapping them around the wire so that they look more finished. And I'm making sure that the ends are tucked in and flattened so that they won't scratch your door, or so that they won't scratch you or your customers. So I'm going to finish that off, and then we'll be ready for the next step. So the next thing I like to do is add my greenery to the wreath. And remember I said I'm taking my 4 longest pieces and putting them in the corners, and I'm just kind of laying everything where it's going to go. And then the 4 shorter pieces are going to go on the sides. I'm not going to do perfect symmetry on the sides. I'm going to kind of alternate it, and you'll see that in a minute. I am realizing now that I don't need as long a stem as I thought, but it's always better to cut it long first and then cut more off later. It's easier than trying to attach something back to it if you need a longer stem. So I'm pushing the flowers up a little bit more, and then cutting some of that stem off, and then I'll be ready to hot glue it up underneath the sign. The glue will kind of attach to the ribbons underneath and maybe part of the back of the sign. Now for the sides of my wreath, I've decided to add the greenery everywhere there is a striped ribbon. Right where it's attached is where the greenery will be glued in underneath the sign. And I don't know, I just thought perfect symmetry would look a little weird to have it sticking out on both sides at the exact same place. So it kind of alternates a little bit where it's going on the sides, but I liked it a little better. So here again, I'm just adding some hot glue. Going to get these all secured, and then I actually turn it over to the back and do more hot gluing if I think it's necessary to keep things secure and tight. Alright, once I finish that, we'll be moving on to the next step. So the next thing I like to do is get my bows attached. I am going to slide these pipe cleaners in between this mesh and tails that I have here, and get them through to the other side, making sure they have a crossbar between the 2 pipe cleaners, so I have something to twist my pipe cleaners around. So that's what I'm doing underneath there. And then I'm going to add the bottom one on and do the same thing. And then once I get them on here, we're going to trim the tails, fluff the bow, get it all situated so that it's looking nice. So again, I trim my tails now once the bow is placed on the wreath, so that I can kind of see how long I want them to be. And then don't forget to just fluff. And by fluffing I mean opening up each of the loops of the bow, making sure they're in the space where each part of the bow can be seen, and things like that. So here I am again on the back where I've attached these bows, and I am twisting these pipe cleaners and clipping them, wrapping them around the bar a few times to make sure that this thing doesn't come loose, and then making sure again that the final ends are tucked in really nice and flat. And that's where I use this pliers, these what I call my jewelry pliers, some old ones, to make sure it's getting nice and flattened so that the wire tips doesn't scratch you or the door. So while I'm getting this bow finished, I just mentioned again that I have 2 upcoming videos, one on how I make this work form, this oval work form for this wreath I have here, and then I'll have one on how I do my ribbon tails, not how to do them because everybody has their own method, but how I do my ribbon tails. And then I also have some upcoming videos. We're going to be moving more into some more summer videos. If you missed the lemon and lime wreath or the ladybug wreath, they're already in my list of videos. And then I'm going to also be adding some more I know I already have the materials to do the anchor wreath form, and we'll see what else comes up. But these wreath forms come in some wonderful shapes for summer, so we're going to get some of those made too. All right, we got one more step. Let's move on. So I don't normally have to do this, but with this sign, because it has the greenery for the letter O, it was looking a little sad. I guess it got mashed a lot during shipping or whatever. And so I decided to fluff it up. I took my fingers and just kept rubbing against it, trying to fluff it up, trying to stand up the leaves. That helped a little bit. I wish I had some small greenery. I would just make probably a totally new O. But I don't have anything this small. So what I decided to do was clip off some of the pieces of the greenery I've added into the wreath. And this is just the tips. And I am putting little teeny pieces of it, mixing it into the wreath. And that just gives it a little bit of life, a little bit of color. And it helps it to stand up a little more so it doesn't look so flat against the sign. So I'm going to get that finished and then share my final pictures with you. I always share final pictures of the wreath itself, and then try to give you an idea of what it would look like hanging on a door. So I hope you have enjoyed this time with me. I thank you so much for spending it with me, and I'll be talking with you again real soon.